Um, so thank you for Women of Color in Higher Education. We started our gatherings back a few months ago. It was initially just women in Long Beach in higher ed, and we've had every month we've had a Zoom call with different topics. And this month's topic, a moment of self-care. Dr. Portia Jackson, Preston, and I met, I believe, last year at the Cal State Northridge Black Educational Wellness Conference. And we connected. She was doing some work on cultural trauma related to the Black community and self-care and healing. And then we just reconnected at the CHEBNA, the Basic Needs California Higher Education Conference recently. And we were talking about some of her research on secondhand trauma for those of us that work with students in crisis, specifically with the basic needs and many, many others. So it gave me a perspective. You know, we don't talk about this enough. How do we take care of ourselves? Specifically, I've worked in higher education in the student affairs world. So how do we focus on ourselves when so much of our work is focused on taking care of my students or serving the faculty or the staff that I work with? So this is a perfect topic. I am excited to introduce you to Dr. Portia Jackson Preston. She is an amazing faculty member at one of my favorite campuses, California State University, Fullerton, where I had the opportunity to work at for 8 years. She has done her doctorate in public health from UCLA, her bachelor's degree from Stanford, and her master's for University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. She has a full program laid out for you. I think we told you in the notes to make sure you bring your cell phones, so pull that out because that will be part of our program. And I'd like to pass it on to Dr. Jackson Preston.
Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to be with each of you in this space today. I want to thank Dr. Sanders for this opportunity. It's been wonderful to be a part of this series, and I'm really excited to share this with everyone today. I want to mention that our partner, Dominica, is putting into the chat some of the links that you'll come across today in this talk, so you have them handy. And before we get started, I just want to take a moment to ground all of us and bring us into this room. And I want to remind you that I'm a co-participant along with you. So what I'm doing also for myself. So if I can have Sabrina advance to the next slide, please. Okay, so actually you can hold on this slide. That's perfect. The next one, we'll come back to this one. One more. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start with reading this, and then we're going to close our eyes and center ourselves into the room. Everything we want to change in the world around us also exists right here in our bodies. We carry the histories of our people's trauma and our individual struggles. They are here, both strengthening us with what they have taught us and also holding us back as our fears, anxieties, and survival strategies keep us away from the things that could most support our liberation. And with that, I invite you, if you're in a space where you feel safe and comfortable doing so, to close your eyes. If you prefer to keep them open, that is fine as well. As you center yourself, I want to ask you to take a deep breath. You're almost there. You've almost made it through this incredible turn. You've learned so much about yourself and what you are capable of. And you've also gone through a lot. And as we explore that today, I want to bring you into a space where you feel safe doing so. So take a moment and think about all the things that you're carrying at this moment. Whether it is conversations you had with your family members, with your students, with your colleagues, with your supervisors, I want to ask you to put those to aside for just a moment and to trust this process, that if you take time to invest in yourself and to reflect on your own well-being, you will be able to show up more brave, more bold, and more capable in each of those spaces. Now, I want you to think about, what does it feel like to spend a moment just reflecting on myself and my needs? Lastly, I want to ask you to set your intention for this hour. What do you want to accomplish in this time? When you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Okay, we are ready to begin. I'm going to ask Dr. Sanders to go back one slide, and this will show you how to participate in today's presentation. So I think there we go. Perfect. So I'm using a software called Mentimeter. And this software does not require any personal information from you. All you want to do is grab your phone and go to menti.com. And once you get there, you want to enter this 6-digit code. If you have a QR code reader, you can also scan the code that's on the screen. If you have any questions or issues, you can let us know in the chat. And before we get started with the first question, I'm just going to ask anyone who feels comfortable doing this, just put your name and location in the group chat so we have an idea of where we're all coming from. This is a remarkable space with people that are all around the country. So you can give your name or your institution. I'm sorry, your name and then also your institution or where you are located. So I will put mine. Perfect. I just want us to be more than I want us to be a face and a name. I want you to feel connected to each other. Okay. So hopefully everyone is on this site now, either from your phone or your computer, and you have your code entered. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see our answers as they come in, and you'll see why I chose this particular format. This is so that we can see everyone's answers. So my first question is, what was your greatest challenge this past term? And if it's applicable, you can also explain how you overcame it. You should be able to do more than one response. If you don't feel comfortable using this, you can use the chat. But again, the strength here is that you're going to be able to see answers that you may resonate with that you did not write yourself. And it's actually a very powerful exercise. So I think many of us would agree moving to online teaching has been a challenge. Some of us, unfortunately, have dealt with death due to COVID and other circumstances. Okay, perfect. So we're starting to get a lot of answers in now. Learning new systems and processes, transitioning to a virtual space, redefining success and not feeling guilty over the new definition, navigating the workplace and dealing with personal medical issues, getting used to working at home, comprehensive exams. Some of us are in that process. Getting management on board with new ideas, finding balance, completing and defending your dissertation, adjusting to your new normal, being unemployed and job searching unsuccessfully, staying focused and motivated, losing a relative, time management and long days on Zoom, leading your team through uncertainty, adjusting to be away from people, adjusting and balancing everyone's needs while still adhering to what needed to be done, forgiving yourself for not keeping up the same pace of productivity, supporting students, managing stress and autoimmune issues, isolation, parent teaching and working from home and parenting, motivating and connecting with students in a different way, finding time for myself and learning how to say no. More online challenges, finding determination to push through and work hard, finding balance and self-care, a lot more balance, doing remote work, navigating the politics, teaching new systems and processes, adapting my typical self-care with those resources not being available, being overwhelmed by COVID-19, lifting other people consistently, beautifully said, managing direct reports remotely, stop playing down my skills and abilities, moving to an online format, balancing caring for my parents, raising my young daughters, transitioning to online work, losing my full-time position, ensuring that equity work continues to be enacted during crisis and budget cuts, and doing work in my safer space home. And more comments about online and balancing time. So I hope you see now why I chose this format. I think it's really beautiful to be able to express ourselves without having to identify ourselves. So you see that you're here with other people, but you're now seeing experiences that you might relate to. And I hope to use this space day to help us build a sense of community, but also to share in how we are each learning and navigating through this. So I just want to take a moment and recognize the challenges, and I want to thank you for your willingness to be brave and to be candid in this space and to share these with us. And we hold space for each of you and your experiences. They are valid. If you have comments, if you want to process how this is for you, you can feel free to continue to talk in the chat. I want to encourage that community. That's what we're here for. So please feel free to share your thoughts and reactions. So now that we've acknowledged our challenge, my next question that I want to ask is, what emerged as your greatest opportunity this past term? And again, if one answer doesn't cut it for you, you can enter multiple. So we have a few coming in: building community, supporting students, getting to spend more time at home with my family, being able to advocate for my students, showing up as a leader, slowing down, realizing I was going at an impossible rate, more advocating for students and being near family. Yes, taking this time to reset boundaries, work at home, connecting with colleagues via webinars, being able to see the good in people and the world, healing in terms of self-healing and reflection, more time to create and reflect. Working remotely was good for my mental health, learning that I am enough, patience and understanding, engaging in a community that is normally out of reach, trying to be resourceful and proactive and not reactive, being okay with not completing everything perfectly, being able to show my strengths, spending more time with myself and strengthening my boundaries, having creative freedom to try new things in student programming, being able to move closer to family, the chance to self-reflect so much more, to finally be able to get enough sleep and restful sleep, slowing down, I needed it, managing health and risk during this pandemic, more time with my hubby, congratulations to the newlywed, slowing down, setting new boundaries, working from home, being able to graduate with my doctorate, working from home and getting the opportunity to do some things for myself, starting a new position, gratitude, being closer to family, learning online teaching, sharing my creative gifts with students and family, taking care of me, pursuing personal goals and passion projects, appreciating change and self-healing, the opportunity to support students in a virtual space and cater to their needs with defined cultural programming, advocating for non-exempt staff during COVID-19, improving my parent engagement, getting outside for walks, more connecting with family, helping colleagues reflect and slow down, meditation practice, being able to work in a virtual online environment, helping our students work to earn money while gaining skills, being able to sleep more. My knowledge technology has been an asset, providing new ways to check in with teams, and our campus serving as a location for food for the community and giving your 10,000 daily steps. Embracing time to work on writing without feeling guilty that that's how you want to use my time. As an adjunct, academic work is important. Connecting and working closely with colleagues I normally would not have the ability to do so on campus. And lastly, reconnecting with what is really important. Oh, we have a few more coming in. Showing my department how my program has adjusted to the new normal, understanding that I have several gifts and skills, assisting with the execution of moving our students out and releasing my staff right before spring break. Also submitting my name for president-elect of my regional housing association with election at the end of the month. Congratulations and best wishes on that. So I have just had a chance to get a glimpse from 50 of you on this call of the incredible opportunities that you've come through in this time. And I just want to thank you for sharing those. I want to thank you for your perseverance and hard work and continuing to look positively to the future and being able to grasp the silver lining. This is not easy or automatic. So again, I want to hold space for each of these experiences and thank all of you who shared them. So now I'm going to ask you a series of 3 questions, and the context is if you are cleaning out your house, the first thing that you want to do, if you're cleaning a particular room, you want to organize and you want to sort. You want to figure out what items do I need to keep? What do I maybe want to toss? And what do I want to donate, right? So now we're thinking about this semester reflection in terms of a couple of different piles. And the first pile is of the practices, of the lessons learned that you saw this semester, the routines, the habits, what is one thing that you want to keep as you move forward? Okay. Again, it's okay to enter multiple answers. So in the chat, someone says, I want to make sure that I protect my time. Letting go of what was and what has been, prayer and reading my Bible, patience, being able to separate and have time for myself, time management, leaving work on time, not working constantly, strength to self-advocate in all spaces, daily routine, structured schedule, sleeping in more with the hubby, ownership of my productive time, morning routine, focus on mental wellness. This is their space, I'm just a visitor. Committing to exercise, more intentional and deep listening to others, more face-to-face meetings, making sure I keep enough sleep, therapy, slower pace in work and less pressure on myself, prayer and devotion time, valuing the sisterhood circle connections I have created, working out, setting my own pace as much as possible, taking more time for myself, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, and maintaining boundaries around my time, daily exercise, more water, keep up the slower pace, stay in the moment, carving out time and preparing myself for the day before meetings and talks, consolidating meetings, self-compassion. We don't have to keep recreating, prioritize wellness and enforce boundaries, Zoom happy hours, more structure and time for yourself, protecting your peace. There's so many that I think I'm actually missing a few, but there's so much good stuff here. Meditation, warm tea and books, letting go of what's no longer useful, more exercise, gratitude, reading for pleasure, structure, saying no when you need to, time in the sun, disconnecting from technology, making time for friendships and family, being vocal with my upper leadership and not succumbing to my imposter complex, keeping time for yourself and doing the things that make you feel stronger and grounded in gratitude. There's just so much on here that just rings of self-care. And I want to thank you all for pointing the conversation in that direction. That's absolutely where we're headed. So thank you so much. These are amazing responses. And I hope that it will give ideas and inspiration to each of us as we see what each person is doing. So now I want to ask you, what is one thing from this term that you want to discard? This no longer works for you. It didn't work out as planned. It did not serve your best interest. Operating from a place of fear, perfection, self-doubt and stress, being silent, procrastinating. Imposter syndrome, letting things or people slide, negative self-talk, anxiety over things I cannot control, reactionary behavior, negative self-talk, taking on too many projects, taking on more work, long commutes, being silent about racism that targets Black folks, negotiating with white supremacy, negative people. These are powerful responses. Always being available, losing patience, not finding grace with myself, not asking for help, putting myself last. Poor time management, procrastinating, taking on too much when others can take the lead. I want to leave behind my fear of getting fired, being hard on myself for not having the right answers. So many of these answers are resonating with each other. And I just hope the one thing that you realize as you see these answers come in is that you are not alone in what you are experiencing. So I want to stop reading all of them. I want to give you a chance just to kind of meditate over them, and then we will move forward. So the one that I'm going to point out before I move on is the fear of not being enough. Okay. And so now I want to know, what is one thing from this term that you want to explore more as you move forward? So maybe it's something you thought you would do and you didn't have time to, or maybe you didn't know how to, but now you're thinking, especially now that a lot of us are confronting the reality that we might be doing this for a while, what is something that you want to try doing in the future? Time management came in immediately. I agree. Okay, that's real. For someone, they said an exit strategy. This has shown them that it's time to exit. Combining your role and your creative side in your work, budgeting, writing more freely, innovative teaching activities, learning the ukulele, nice, writing, use of technology in the classroom, studying AI and data analytics, reading for fun, creative writing, being more concise and using resources more effectively, less busy work and events. Yes, being more intentional with how we spend our time. Finding myself, new passion projects, pursue an advanced degree, publish my research, read for leisure, exercise, meditation, clear boundaries, business adventures, make my dream my reality. I am so inspired as I read this list because it's clear that you all have a hope and a light and a fire, and you have a reason to keep persevering. And I want to encourage you to keep this list that you're creating, and so that it can inspire you on the tough days, because it's clear that I'm talking to a group of women that are full of power and dreams. And this is the way that we remind ourselves of that. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. I just want to let a few more responses come in. So if you're holding on to something, go ahead and put it forth. Learning how to make passive income, starting your own business, preparing for a faculty position, shaping your career in a way that works best for you, creating your next chapter and journey. Beautiful responses. Thank you so much for that. Branding yourself. Thank you. Okay. So now I want to know, what has been your approach to self-care this past term? And I just want you to express this in a few words. So keep it short, 1 to 3 words. You can submit multiple entries if you want. And I believe this slide is actually going to show up a little differently. So let's see what happens as the responses come in. Yes, this is going to be a word cloud. So the more that we see certain responses, they're going to show up more prominently, and we'll get an idea of what some of our big picture takeaways are here. Boundaries, rest, yoga, being patient, being loving, intention, exercise. Oh, this is so beautiful. Prayer, TV, someone said, friendship, gratitude, self-love, food, audible books, slowing down, jacuzzi, nice. Being grateful, Black women, saying no. Okay, so we see that a few themes are starting to pop up for us. Exercise was really how a lot of us engaged in self-care. Gratitude was very popular, as was friendship and family, yoga, boundaries, walking, prayer. Beautiful. Bible study group, spending time with your puppy, less space time, disconnecting, compartmentalizing, cooking. There's a lot of really beautiful ideas here. And this is just in what we've been able to do in this past term. That is really remarkable. I see someone else said going to natural hair. Boy, this is the time to do that. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna let the responses that are coming in right now come through, and then we will move on to the next slide. Okay. Embracing being a night owl. Okay. So now I want to ask, how do you want to engage in self-care moving forward? What do you want to do the same? What do you want to do differently? So running, being intentional, being consistent, putting yourself first, reading for fun, taking a daily walk, exercising, prioritizing yourself, rewarding yourself, absolutely. Take time for mindfulness and meditation, journaling, growing your own food, more leisure reading, exercise, great. Protecting your peace, being intentional, pursuing your friendships and relationships, working remotely more often, not being afraid of your stuff and working on you, saying no when you need to, reflecting on what's important, planning it as you do your other activities, showing yourself grace, asking yourself what you want to do right now and what is best for you. So I want to thank all of you for participating in this interactive portion, whether you contributed, even if you sat back and you absorbed what was coming in. This is so powerful because now you have a true sense of community with other women about how we are navigating this space. So I believe that is the last, oh no, I'm sorry, there's one more important step to this. So I've been focusing so far on the individual aspect of self-care, and I never want to talk about self-care without discussing that it is a multi-level it needs a multi-level structure to support it. So I want to think about the organizations that we work for. We are all in higher education. How would you suggest the organizations that we work for can help us foster resilience? What resources do you need to make what you said a reality? So we have some examples coming in. So people said flexible hours, being understanding and recognizing the work of others, make self-care opportunities available and mandatory, maintain hybrid teaching, the ability to work remotely, mental health support, realistic expectations, understanding of boundaries. Yeah, because it's one thing to set them and another thing to honor them. Open dialogue, trusting your team, accepting differences, authentic commitment to equity and diversity, create interventions that will interrupt sexism and racism, having empathy for employees considering their multiple roles in life, Provide reliable information. Grace. Ask how people are. Learn from these opportunities to work remotely. Be trustworthy. Provide a space to vent with supervisors or coworkers. Now that we're working from home, let it continue on Fridays. Check in. Awards and recognition along with positive coaching and support. Understand that we are more than just our career. Encourage taking our paid time off. Create spaces for dialogue. Okay, I want to thank you all so much. I think it's important for us to address this aspect because there's many of us who may be in the role right now where we can advocate for this. And so I want you guys to have an idea of what some of these options might actually look like. Being more compassionate and thoughtful, opportunities for authentic team building and encouragement, respecting everyone's journey and understanding how employees' situations differ, and encouraging mentorship, improving communication. All of these are things that you feel are central to helping to foster resilience. So I also see one coming in on team building and social activities. I want to thank you so much for giving your feedback on that. I think it's really important. And my final question is, I think I've already asked this, how you want to engage in self-care moving forward. So I'm going to skip that and I'm going to return control of the slides back to Dr. Sanders so that I can wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson Preston. We hope that you enjoyed that. That was a great exercise.
I'm not finished. My slide.
Sorry.
I'm almost there though, I promise.
Sorry, let me get back to, so I am, can you see the slide?
No, I can't. Go ahead and, are you sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, so this last part is brief. I've set the stage for all of you to think about how you're gonna be more intentional about your self-care, and all I'm gonna leave you with is a framework for doing so. So I'm gonna go ahead and have you advance. Perfect, okay. So I'm gonna introduce to you a self-care starter kit. I'm just gonna go over this very briefly. Go ahead and advance, please. And the link to this is already in the chat. So when you go to this website, there is an introduction to self-care. Next slide, please. And they have a multi-layer kit. We're just gonna look at the first 4 steps. What are you doing now to cope with your stress? What are you currently doing for self-care? How can you maintain your self-care and address your barriers and obstacles? And lastly, developing an emergency self-care plan. Next slide, please. This is a lifestyle behavior inventory, and it will allow you to explain what you are currently doing when you are experiencing stress, which of these behaviors are positive and which are negative. And this will help you to identify some of the negative behaviors that you want to respond to. And I think, Dominica, if you could put the link in the chat again, that'd be helpful. Okay, next slide, please. And please be honest with yourself as you do this. I had positive and negative behaviors on mine, so this is not the time to be modest. Next, you see categories of what you currently do for self-care, and they will walk you through what each of these mean. I'll provide you with an example in a moment. Next slide, please. So this is the actual assessment. I know it's a bit hard to see here, but when you go to the website, you're gonna see examples of activities for each of the categories I just showed you, and you'll be able to see patterns of where you're doing really well in your self-care, where you have a lot of activities, and you'll see areas where you might want to do more. The goal isn't for you to do every activity on this page. It's for you to identify the tools you need to feel balanced. If there's a category that's not relevant to you, that's okay. You just want to focus on what matters to you. Next slide, please. And you'll see at the end, there's an area for other areas of self-care that are relevant to you. For me, I always like to put a financial category there, but for you, you can do whatever resonates. So go ahead for the next slide, please. I made an example of some things we might do for workplace or professional self-care, specifically right now during COVID-19, such as establishing a daily routine, taking breaks away from the screen, setting boundaries around your working hours and the space from which you work, and being compassionate with yourself and others. Next slide, please. This is how you will develop your maintenance self-care plan. It's not designed to be overwhelming, but they're giving you each category, and all you have to say is, this is what I currently do, if you have a practice, and this is what I want to do in the future. So you can keep it very simple. You can work on just 1 or 2 areas. This slide talks about, go ahead, you were fine. Go ahead and advance. This slide talks about what some of your barriers are and how you will address them to make sure you practice self-care. And then you're gonna carry over one of your negative lifestyle behaviors and say, this is one I'd like to do less or not at all, and here's what I'll do instead. We wanna set you up with a positive behavior. So you don't say, I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. Instead, you say, I will do X, Y, Z. Okay, next slide, please. This is how you're going to develop an emergency self-care plan. This is where we're living right now, quite frankly, in COVID-19. This is about making sure you have go-to resources of who you're going to talk to when you're going through hard times, who you're not going to talk to, things that you need to tell yourself to remain positive and hopeful. And I keep this really close to my desk all the time right now, because I need this reminder of how I can calibrate myself. So if you don't have a lot of time, I would give yourself half an hour to fill out the self-care kit. If you don't have a lot of time, I would start here with the emergency self-care plan. And I do have some videos on my YouTube channel that will walk you through all of this with examples. Lastly, accountability. I want you to identify one person in your personal or professional life that you can share your self-care plan with. And I want you to commit to one action step you will take to engage in self-care. So that is what I'd like to leave you with. And my last slide just provides you with a reminder. You can go to this link for all of my resources. My TED Talk is there. That will tell you my entire life story, which I did not provide to you today. It's 10 minutes and it lays out all of the self-care tips I told you about with examples. And it contextualizes self-care as a multi-level approach to health equity and social justice. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for your time and return the floor to Dr. Sanders.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. We can all give Dr. Jackson Preston a round of a visual applause. Great job. I really think we could do a retreat over this whole activity and this whole discussion. And I apologize for cutting you down. I'm a taskmaster person. I have no business co-hosting a workshop on self-care. So I apologize for that. One of the activities that I think we're going to be doing next is breaking up into breakout rooms. And we're going to spend about 10 minutes in groups of 4, and kind of leading from the discussion, we want to talk it out loud. What specific steps will you take to prioritize? Thank you so much for connecting with more sister friends in our small group circles. Anybody want to share maybe a little bit that came out of their discussion with their small group? If you can maybe raise your hand, we'll call your name out, and then you can unmute yourself and share. We have a couple minutes for a share out of.
In the chat.
Sorry?
There's someone in the chat that wanted to share.
Excellent. Sharice Mathis, do you want to unmute yourself?
Oh, I didn't. I just wanted to share because I know some people posted in the chat about living with chronic illness or having a new chronic illness. I've navigated it since 2009. I actually was a hall director when I found out that I had lupus. So the whole process of not understanding what's going on with your body. I recently had a baby. She's 19 months old. So I just want to be encouraging to anyone that is thinking about any of that stuff. And, you know, people say, oh, you can't do this or do that. I prepared my body for 3 years before I had my kids. So if anybody wants to talk about any of that stuff and how I've been able to be healthy and all my hair and everything, please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharice. We really appreciate that. And it's an inspiration, because you never know who in the group really needed to hear that and needs that connection. So Sharice Mathis, and she put her contact information in the chat. Somebody else raised their hand. Jerry Harner, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes. Someone in our group just used the perfect word to describe giving ourselves grace during this time. And I just thought that was so perfect for this timing, because there's a lot of things we can be doing, should be doing, aren't doing, but just giving ourselves grace for what we're going through. And I love that.
Thank you. Grace. I have a friend that named their child that because they needed to be reminded. Grace is such a special word. Dr. Luana Richmond.
Well, I just want to say I was with a great group who shared some resources in the chat to like a TED Talk, and then there was some information about free art classes being offered by one of the art and design colleges. And I was just hoping that they would share it in the chat over here so everyone could get exposure to it. Plus, I didn't get a chance to copy and paste them before we left the breakout room.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richmond. Dr. Rashida Crutchfield, amazing researcher on the basic needs, food and housing and security, offered a list of resources. You can see it in the chat. She's with California State University of Long Beach, Dr. Rashida Crutchfield. So if you have any folks that need assistance with food or housing and security, please connect them to the resources in the chat. Anybody else would like to share out?
I just want to say thank you to Sharice for sharing your story. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. And it's something that I didn't discuss, but I talk about in my TED Talk. The more of us that share our journeys, the less invisible we are, and the more that we all succeed. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Corliss Bennett, one of our campuses furthest to the north of California. You raised your hand.
All the way up north. I'm representing Humboldt State University, which is exactly an hour and a half from the Oregon border, still in California. Had a great time with the group. I think for me, I was trying to figure out how you were going to get groups on a Zoom. So I think that took my mind. So that was cute. But anyway, I was sharing with the group that as women of color, and especially Black women of color, we are taught that we have to carry everything. We carry everything on our shoulders, and we're always trying to help someone and help the situation, and being the only Black female on staff, or being the only Black female on campus, or being that person that you're just so willing to help our students and things of that nature. And sometimes you just have to stop and say no. And so that was one of the things that came out of our group, about, saying no, and just knowing. I thought I knew you, Portia. Yes. Sorry, I was reading the chat, but it's just that, as a first generation college graduate, you have something to prove. Your parents have instilled into you and said, Corliss, you're going to do this, and you go ahead, you get your master's, and then you get your doctorate, and like, oh my God, now you have your doctorate, now what? And you just keep going and keep going. And then what ends up happening is the Lord will slow you down. And so you got to listen to your body and listen to your mind before you lose it. And so that was just something I just wanted to throw in there.
Corliss, that was a perfect leeway into our next program.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, you dropped it like it's hot.
Bam, bam.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for sharing. Thank you for the connections. Dr. Portia, Jackson, Preston, you really kicked it off on some reflections that we all really needed to hear. And the connections in the small groups was so valuable for just the meeting and connecting and knowing folks that are experiencing the same challenges as I am. We really appreciate everybody coming together. I wanted to highlight that we have our session scheduled for next month. And let me share that with you. Oh, I gave the wrong thing. Our session is going to be hosted by Chirapon Kampavong. Chirapon and I met when she worked for Peace Corps. And I was at California State University, Fullerton, and her task at the time was recruiting students to go abroad, and she had done the Peace Corps back during after college. And so I was a director of the Volunteer and Service Center, so it was all about service and getting students in out of the classroom experience. Chirapon has a really amazing background. Her family came from Laos as refugees after the silent war, post Vietnam War, a family of 12, and they were sponsored by a family in Idaho. In Idaho, can you imagine a family of 12 Laotian refugees moving to Idaho? They lived in a farmhouse until their father joined them from Laos, and he was in a prison camp there. And she has committed her life to service and international student affairs, missionary work, connecting students to out of the country experience, and looking at how the rest of what's happening around the world. She recently she's been working in Laos for the last few years, and started her own nonprofit, and had to come back to the United States, and she's going to share a little bit about her story. Let me pass it on to you, Chirapon, and you can tell a little bit about our next session for next month.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sabaidi. I am excited to be in the midst of beautiful hearts and minds here. And as you know, we're all lifelong learners. Next month, we will be focusing on we stop so that our souls could catch up. And how many times do we do not allow ourselves to stop so that our souls could catch up. And that's something that I have learned when I was working at Azusa Pacific University for a collective of 14 years. And as lifelong learners, how do we learn to love ourselves through the process of service, especially in the local as well as the global components? And then how do we then think ahead and strategically move onward with more of a regenerative resilience in whatever organization or institution that we are involved with. So I will leave you with that until we meet next time. Thank you, Sister Sabrina.
Thank you, Chirapon. I appreciate it. And Chirapon and I are friends, and one of our things that brings us together is wine. So bring your glass of wine next month, Monday, June 15th, 5 p.m. And I'll send a registration link out to all folks who have participated in our past sessions. And then you'll see it via social media if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, etc. So thank you so much. Again, thank you for our co-host, Dr. Jackson Preston, so much for the discussion, the conversation, and the camaraderie. Thank you, Dominica, for managing all the technical stuff in the background. This is one of many programs that we have coordinated, and so I just want to thank our past presenters, and we hope that you can join us next month. Remember that you're not alone, that there's a whole group of sister friends across the country that are here to support you. Know that we will get through this and that you are amazing. And we look forward to you reporting back on your self-care plan at our next session. Have a wonderful evening, be blessed, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.